So we'll do this in right when we get to 10. Go ahead and start the Heart Sutra. I'm just going to do some preparations.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely.
Dan, share up Nimpo. Okay.
You guys want to do this? It makes it hot in here.
It's fine. It's probably better.
It does make it hot.
I don't know. That's not good. That's too much. We're good. Make sure the mumbo yure. The Ming Kanga may yure. Brian yure. The yure. Me mumbo yure. Stasha yure. Konshatse. Yeah, thank you. So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for attending the live Zoom teaching by Namgyal Khensur Geshe Lobsang Tenzin. Today Rinpoche is going to continue to read and explain the Chandrakirti's entrance to the middle way. And we're just going to go over parts if people have questions. But just remember that the next step after this is that we look at the actual commentary on this root text. So a lot of the questions will be answered in Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary, and I'll get into that when we get into the teaching after the introductory prayers. But so if you have something that's really detailed and complex, I would suggest that not only do you ask, but you also look at illuminating the intent. Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary on this text, because it's incredible. It's like flawless. It's one of the greatest texts I've ever read. It's like ignited my desire to like dive into things I thought I knew that now I'm realizing I wasn't that clear on. So, and it's really beautiful the way Thupten Jinpa does it. You can see the actual chapter and stanza of the chapter next to the section. So you can really you don't have to like be a scholar of the book and its contents to find like the exact stanza you're looking for the meaning of. So it takes 2 minutes to find anything you want to in that text, the way they laid it out. He spent a lot of time, if you listen to the way that he prepared when he talks about it in some of the podcasts, a lot of time making sure it was very readable. So anyway, it is. And so any of the more in-depth questions that even I'll have trouble grappling with the language on, you'll see very clear explanations in the text, and then we can ask for clarification on that, because we'll have the root text of the illuminating the intent has that commentary, so there'll be a real precise way to ask the questions, if you know what I mean. Instead of looking at a root text and then trying to decipher without a commentary where it's coming from. So let's get started with the Heart Sutra, and then we'll get into the teaching. And Dan's going to lead us today in the Heart Sutra, because he's a great orator. I think he's got a great voice.
Thank you, Jeff. Geshe Rinpoche. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard. Once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sangha of monks and a great gathering of the Sangha of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the Samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination, and at the same time, Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, Noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. Thus, Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There is no birth and no cessation. There is no impurity and no purity. There is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shaiputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas. No I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death, no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shaiputra, since the bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of prajna paramita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear, they transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas are the 3 times by means of prajna paramita, fully awakened to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of prajna paramita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The prajna paramita mantra is said in this way: Teata om gate gate para sam gate bodhisoha. Thus Shaiputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound prajna paramita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family. Thus it is, O son of noble family. Thus it is. One should practice the profound prajna paramita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shaiputra, noble Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world, with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. No
Agasamara de Nara Samara Yambe, De Adon, Gade Gade Baragade Barazangade Badizo, Baba Ganjo Sanjigai, de Medoji, Lobodoji, Mepodoji, Shewoji, Jagi Baji, Metro Beja Danji, Tengo Yeso, Gerin Donya, Joji Wada, Mebu, Beja Danja Wada, Nomba Joji, Bonzon Zonjoji, Dashi de Jan Denda. Suma. Hold on one second. The dogs are deciding to play dog games. Come on. Oh, they have a ball. I see. Come on. Let's go. Everybody out. Everybody out. Come on. Suma. Sorry. Come on. Suma's probably fine. They were just fighting for a ball. Hi there. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. Holy Lamas high, wrap the sky of your Dharma bodies in massive clouds of knowledge and love, and let them pour upon the earth of your disciples as we are ready, a shower of rain, the teachings deep and wide. Lama I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Idam Guru Radha Mandala Gam Niratayami. Sanye Jadan Jayi Janam La Janju Badu Dani Jazuji Dagi Junye Jitanaji Jala Benji Sanye Jubajo Sanye Jadan Jayi Janam La Janju Badu Dani Jazuji Nagi Junye Jitanaji Jala Benji Sanye Jubajo Sanye Jadan Jayi Janam La Janju Badu Dani Jazuji Nagi Junye Jitanaji Jala Benji Sanye Jubajo. Suma, come on, lie down. Lie down, Suma. Poor Suma's got an eye infection, so. Come on, Suma, let's go out here. Come on, Suma. Come on, honey. Oh, come on, Suma. Good girl. Okay. So today we're going to begin with stanza 130. And after we get done with whatever Rinpoche gets through, I just want to go back to Brian's question. And I just want to tell a funny story that's connected to it. So it's really important in relation to this text. So we'll get started. Just give me one moment. Oh, I don't have a pen. I need a pen. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. I don't usually need a pen, but I do today. Back up.
Rinpoche, kailan kutsu tempo impe?
I have them on my head. Thank you so much. Okay, so we'll get started with stanza 130 is where we left off. So that's where we'll start today, and we'll go from there. Chuji Nejo.
Chuji Nejo Dame Tunwala, Tazungon Meba Joros. Ada Puna, Tazitish, Chuji Sense of Pungu Damango. Chuji Nejo Dame Tunwali, Tuzutani, Tuban Joshi. Tula Mene Joshi Chazu, Chujuti Gon to measure. Mashitebe Pombo Tagoshi, Somba Teshipu Dandona, T. Pon Ponle, Ada Kobote, Zoda Mezu, Doyen Fonjero, Anche Zuso, Dami Duché Cham, Mayen Duché, Name Nache Cham.
Memba Dujin. Here.
Meban
She shared
Doyen,
this.
Meban Doyen, son baptiste, Doyen, son baptiste, Dabon.
Yanshe Zuzo.
Anche Zuso, Dami Duché Cham, Mayen Duché, Name Nache Cham, Meban Doyen, les son teacher, Doyen Pombo, Daji, Gemayi, Udame, Joseph Ponaje, Tuba Yije, Pombo, Pombo Ngome, Mami Duché, Women do she,
It's cool. Rinpoche's
Women.
text fades out, so just give me 1 second. I'll get him back to where he needs to be. Pomboda. Here. Pombo. Pombo. Pombo
Daji,
dache.
Jose, Honaji, Tubai, Pumping Woman. Women do Woman Jami, Tishana, Tuba Maino. This is the Yula, Sunala, Sunanam, Sheda Ninjuru, Sheda Nada, Sun. Do the Pombo Ten, Yesuba, Tish Pombo Duzan, Damai. Ish not Zojin Lai, Chula, Tada, Iji, Nida, Jujurji, Shazu Suna, Danim Jumite, Kasha, Tada Lai, Yumai, Labu Yele, Labu Ramya,
Lampo Ranya Lanchi Jingo Man de Ten Leche.
Lebu, and son, his son bar, Tish Pombo Duzan, Damai. Iji Shina, Zojin Lai, Chula, Tada, Nida, Jujurji, Shazu Suna, Daji Jumite, Kasha, Tada Lai, Yumai, Labu, Raja Laji,
Jingo Man.
Ringumi, Tada Le, Tada Le Shibu, Chiji Juru, Shibu Mele, Yuan Lui Na, Mai Kasha, Shibu Teleme, Kasha Tubi, Tada Sajume, Longdang Nashi, Naka Shishawa, Kaju Tane, Mesu, Ribayi, Tenju Tala Tene, Nedenshi, Sada Sajun, Chuda Nezun, Ne, Tezun Tish, Tene, Tenal Ta, Tenimayi, Tuzan Yimite, Tishin Ngajin, Lut, Alami,
Kishina de Yabudu.
Ya,
Okay, so that gets us up to, it ends at 139, so we would be at 140. So I want to just start, we'll go through the English on that and then bring up the points and then see about questions. The Dixon Rinpoche.
Ya,
So stanza 130. When yogis see there is no self, your theory thus implies that they must likewise see that there are no phenomena. But if you now refute a self that's permanent, then for that very reason, self is not the mind or aggregates. It follows from your theory that when yogis see that there is no self, they fail to understand the final truth of form and other aggregates. They focus on them. I occurs, and so desire and all the rest Because of the nature of this form, they do not understand. Now you claim that the Buddha said that aggregates compose the self. It's thus that you attempt to justify your view, but Buddha's words refute a self extraneous to the aggregates. In other sutras, he explained that form is not the self. Thus, feeling, form, perception, those are not the self. Conditioning factors, consciousness are also not the self. In other sutras, this has been explained. That aggregates compose the self in brief has never been proclaimed. When the aggregates are said to be the self, this means the aggregates together and not one by one, and yet a mere assemblage is not your protector. It cannot discipline or stand as cannot be yourself. Where it's not so, if we compare a chariot to the self, the mere collection of a chariot's parts would constitute a chariot. The sutra says that self depends on the aggregates. This shows their mere coincidence is not the self. You say the self's their shape, configuration, but shapes belong to form. So though you say the aggregates, non-Buddhist, hold on. So you say the aggregates are self, this cannot mean the mental aggregates, for they indeed are lacking any shape. It makes no sense that grasp and grasper should be one, for this would mean identity between the doer and the done. And if you think that there's a deed without a doer of the deed, this is not so. For where there is no agent, there can be no act. Wherefore, the Buddha has most clearly said that self is based on earth and water, fire, wind, space, and consciousness, these six, and also on the six supports of contact like the eyes. He also said quite certainly that it is based upon the mind and mental factors. Thus, from these the self is not distinct. It is not they, nor yet the simple grouping of the name. We grasp our ego independently of them. So that reads us up to where Rinpoche read. I want to go back to stanza 128. It's just, I want to tell an interesting story that's a learning lesson, I think, for myself and anyone else who may find it a learning lesson. So we had a question last week on stanza 128. Stanza 128, standing alone, says, Nirvana once attained, the self would be extinguished. And prior to this, the self would arise and vanish every instant. Without an agent, there would be no karmic fruit, or the actions done by one would give results the others reap. So when we read this and then tried to attack this stanza as a standalone stanza, it started to be very unclear, right, what it would mean. It could mean a million different things. Without a commentary, you could really just pull a lot of different things out of that, unless you read the stanza before it that very clearly makes the point that's being made. The stanza before it said, but if the self were equal to the aggregates, it must, since these are many, be a multiplicity, and it would be substantial, like every other thing, and not at all a simple misconception. Nirvana once attained, the self would be extinguished, and prior to this, the self would arise and vanish every instant. Without an agent, there would be no karmic fruit, or else the actions done by one would give results to the others who reap. So here you see it's talking about the negation of the view that the aggregates are the self. And if the aggregates were the self, when the contaminated aggregates, when the foe destroyer with remainder, right, still has aggregates, gets rid of those aggregates and then attains nirvana, there would be no self because the aggregates aren't there anymore. So it's a consequence to the idea that the self is the aggregates, because the aggregates arise and disintegrate. As we have we have one of the types of suffering is the pervasive compounded suffering. This is the karma that throws us again and again into a set of aggregates, and it's kind of beyond our control. We have no independence. That's the karma of this reoccurring cycle of existence. These aggregates arise and disintegrate, and then new aggregates rise and disintegrate. If that was the self would arise and disintegrate, and then there would be no self when the remainder was no longer there of contaminated aggregates that are you're thrown into. So let me just read what Lama Tsongkhapa says, because I think it's really interesting to see how clear this commentary. So it says, now, if it's the position that one's five aggregates are the self is true, then since the aggregates are multiple, even in the case of a single person, the self would be multiple. So that's the first consequence. You have multiple selves because there's multiple aggregates. So that becomes untenable. And then it says, if one's view is that consciousness alone is the self, then there are multiple classes of consciousness there's I consciousness, and so on, and numerous instances of consciousness arise and cease in every moment, and the self too would become numerous as well then. Because you have all these arisals. If you say the self's the consciousness, you have I consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue tactile consciousness. You have all these other varying forms, then there would be all these varying selves. And it says, and the cease, and it says, each such an I consciousness and so on, the numerous instances of consciousness arise and cease in every moment, the self too would be numerous as well. Here in the commentary, this is Chandrakirti's auto commentary. Chandrakirti levels this consequence of multiple selves ostensibly against the first of these two positions. All 5 aggregates constitute the self. But since the fault extends to both positions, it can be applied in either case. So then it gets more into it. Such a consequence cannot be raised against someone who accepts mere multiplicity. Let's get into this. For you, the self would be substantial or real. What you refer to as the aggregates are diverse, such as form, and have evolved into different entities on the basis of their past. So because you refer to the aggregates alone as the self would be substantially existent in your view. However, given the former statements, the opponent does not assert that the self is substantially existent. So it gets then in deeper into how then, furthermore, if one's own aggregates are the self, according to the Buddhist essentialists, the self would also definitely terminate at the moment of attaining nirvana without residue when all 5 aggregates come to cease. Your view will therefore become a nihilistic view grasping at an extreme, that then there's nothing, a nihilism, because this would be gone the minute the aggregates were gone. So there would be no nirvana. There would be no way to abide in nirvana or have a non-abiding nirvana once that remainder was gone. So I think I'm just going to kind of just stop it there. We don't need to kind of go on. This really gets into a lot of details, but I just wanted to show how if you don't have a commentary, right, and you don't look at the context of the stanza and you pull any stanza out, it's so easy to misinterpret the intent. You may not be giving wrong view in terms of what Buddhism says, but it's very easy to misinterpret the intent. And we didn't talk really about that as the intent last week. We talked about other things that were actually true, but were not necessarily what the point that's being made here. And it's very important that when you look at a root text, you see negations being made of all of these things that will come up into our mind stream or that we even hold and don't know we hold. So it's like hitting every gopher and making sure that there is no stone left unturned of ignorance. So that's really important, that the commentary is then presented properly, because you're not going through the stages of negation with the author if you aren't looking at it in terms of what the author really is presenting. And the only way to know that is to have commentaries, to rely on a teacher, and put all of those things together into a package that then allows you to understand. Because this is Yamaka. This is like the final thing. The monks study logic, and they study the topics, the collected topics, logic primer type situation. And they study the mind and its function. And then they study the signs and reasoning and the Pramanavartika, Karika mixed in with that. And then they get into the Prajnaparamita for 7 years, which has a lot of this material already in it. So they're primed and ready to then just rip the Madhyamaka apart after, 7 days a week for at least 10 or 11 years, having debated all of the foundations that make this all make sense. So when it doesn't make exact sense to us, we can just kind of say, well, later it will, but we need to then not just be lazy and say, well, that's fine. We need to look at a commentary because we have them now in English. So I'm saying this to myself as well, not to just be satisfied with partial views. That's one of the advices of Tsongkhapa. That's what we need to follow. So maybe we'll have some question and answer. I just wanted to share that. I actually got done with the teaching, and I was just so unhappy with my explanation of that stanza, because I felt like I was just dancing around this the actual stanza, and I wasn't holding on to it. So I immediately got done with the teaching, ran to the commentary and looked at some other stuff. And then I called Brian, because Brian asked the question. So I called him like 10 minutes, 15 minutes after the teaching and clarified it with him. And so now I just wanted to clarify it with all of you. I don't even remember exactly. I haven't rewatched it. I just know it wasn't that. So I just wanted to, just always be keeping the teachings pure. That's all. Anybody have questions? Yeah.
Go ahead, Dan.
Okay. Rinpoche la ngala diwa chigyo. I have one question.
Dan said, not
Yeah.
in PK last
So the question is to clarify. I guess the ultimate point is, can you clarify the relationship? Hold on one second. There's an ambulance. Can you clarify the relationship between selflessness and free will? I think that's the ultimate point that's just being described in the text. It's like there is no true self, but there is karma, and therefore karma arises based on action or free will. So what is the relationship between free will and selflessness?
I don't think Buddhism would truly assert free will. So let's start there. It's not a concept. Let me just explain it to Rinpoche. But everything arises from a cause. So every experience we has a previous cause. So a reaction that we do has a cause. So Rinpoche, the ngatsu the lei ngama the jewa tomo mepa lei sasu. Then the ngatsu lei gewa le sa megewa le sa ngatsu ransen ngatsu ngawa ju ngatsu ransen yurbe ransen ngatsu ransen le ngatsu ransen yurbe nga the hearing gewa sa nga ransen in lego.
Susu tar wrong ji marba.
Da wrong.
Gosa da. Magosa da.
Yine susu ja ju show. Le yo marbe.
Le butte tla den. So le ji ro.
Then the ngatsu the le mena ransen yo marbe. Okay, so we have an individual choice to see if we engage in virtue or non-virtue, but then when I press the subject further and I asked what that individual choice has to be caused by something, he said it's caused by karma. So I've struggled with this for 20 years, by the way. I've never heard an answer I'm happy with on it, so I kind of put it on a shelf. I've heard the Dalai Lama answer it at least 30 times. I'm not happy with the answer. So I'm putting my doubts or whatever on a shelf about that. But Rinpoche, see, this is where we end up. We went, well, yeah, you have a choice. You can do, you can engage in virtue or non-virtue. But then if I say, do you have to have the karma to make the choice to engage in virtue? The answer is yes. So that's the dialogue Rinpoche and I just had. So it's not possible for me to engage in virtuous karma unless I have the karma to engage in virtuous karma. And the Buddha said that karma is more difficult to understand than emptiness. And this is something that not an omniscient mind is going to do well with. So that makes me feel a little better because I have faith in all of the other stuff. Like, Arya Davis says, like, if you start to have doubts in some of this stuff you can't really grapple with, just go to emptiness and then go to topics that are just so certain that no one else is presenting are certain. And then it'll make you feel a little more comfortable about what you can't really know. But great question. Then the inji mambo the triwa jagadu. Nga ransen yimba mayimba. Gangen sene the ngatsu the le kanga. The ngatsu jepo ngatsu noa kanga lei jepo. Ne lay, ne lego, ngame lego, ngamale. Yomaribe.
这以前
Dene the tanda, nga de geche she, ngamale jepo. Yomaribe.
没记得
So I'm saying, right? So everything that we experience, or if in any time I want to engage in virtue, I have to have karma that will allow me to engage in virtue. So I have to have a cause which is concordant with the result. So I have to have a cause to make me act that way, right? Virtuously, and it has to be concordant. So if I'm acting virtuously, something has to be virtuous that caused that result of me acting virtuous, because all effects are concordant with their causes. It's not like somehow, some negativity would then bring about positivity. So every action that we engage in and everything that we experience is a result of our karma, our previous karma that we've accumulated since beginningless time. This is all our Rinpoche and my dialogue. So in order for me to engage in virtue, I have to have the karma to do so. If I don't have the karma to do so, I can't engage in that virtue. I said, Rinpoche, could I be talking right now and explaining this text with you if I didn't have the karma to do so? Could I just do that? And he said, no, you have to have the karma to do that. So free will to me starts to get sticky. And then it's very easy to get nihilistic because it's like, well, this is all going to happen when it's going to happen, right? Like, I don't have any control, so I'm just going to do what I do. Now that, so Lobsang, is Lobsang La there? I would love to hear if you've ever been, or you've debated the heck out of this and you just somehow have some answer that I've never.
I can, okay. I mean,
yeah, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
I'll just
hear the question.
Yes, and as you mentioned, I think it's important for this question
to hold on.
keep in mind that there is no like pre-existing concept that directly matches this concept of free will in any Buddhist tradition that I've ever heard, certainly not in Tibetan or the Tibetan language. So that's something to keep in mind. But of course, the basic questions that come up when thinking about free will are of course addressed in the Buddhist tradition. So I've never debated it with any within the monastery because it's not, a central philosophical issue in the Tibetan philosophical context. I would just say though, like when you look at the different types of free will, like libertarian free will, and then the compatibilism is sort of different, like in Western philosophy, these are some of you might be familiar with those terms or not. The Buddhist idea seems more in line with like a compatibilism idea of free will, which is, as Rinpoche is saying, yeah, we have the choice to do A or we have the choice to do B. We have the choice to refrain from, saying a lie or harsh words, and we have the choice to say the harsh words or not, the virtue or the non-virtue. But at the same time, they're conditioned. So
right.
those actions are caused, they have causes and conditions. So, I mean, since it's not a question, since I don't know any Western philosophers, like personally that well, I haven't debated it with them. And since it's not a question in the Buddhist context, I haven't debated it with my Tibetan peers. So I've just thought about it and heard other, people, discuss it and read about it. Basically, I just feel like the whole practice of Buddhism, the path, is developing greater and greater freedom of, the ability for your mind to control your own thoughts and actions. And so, really a Buddha has complete free will. Whereas,
awesome.
The rest of us are more, subject to the conditions of our previous actions. Like the Buddha is free of karma, of contaminated karma. So, he's under the control of compassion, as we know from the Lama. Yeah, that's just my thoughts on it, but I don't know.
Right. And then when you say the Buddha, that what you just said comes to my mind. Well, he's kind of under control of compassion. That's what forces him not to abide in nirvana. So does he have free will?
Well, I think the question of okay, so when we say free will, what's the implication there? Just in the term and the concept itself is is, free, Rangwang. That's the Tibetan. What is
Yes.
the Tibetan for inherent existence? Rang Shingi Drupa, Rangwandu Drupa. It's this, they're synonymous basically. So free, freely existent and inherently existent, we could say are synonymous. So, nothing is free of conditions. Nothing is free of being dependent on its parts and on, mental labeling. So nothing is free in that sense. So when we say free will, there's the implication underneath it of a free willer. There has to be, the subject which is freely willing, which is this, independent self. That doesn't
Some
exist.
agent.
The independent agent, right? So since we are already negating the independent agent, then the free will probably has to we have to negate free will along with that. But again,
Yeah.
Then other people will say, well, there's still free will but you just call it compatibilism, and you say, well, yes, there's some degree of, the appear in the, Madhyamaka context, there's still the conventional appearance that I'm doing things by my own decision. And even though there's this, they're not intrinsically established, independently established, they still function, appear, we experience them. So
Conventional.
so I think that fits with the compatibilism model of free will that Western philosophers would discuss about, I think.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you. And yeah, hopefully
Oh,
that's
Abbot. Kon Ransen the Sanjay Ransen. Gangisina the Yene the Natsu the Ransen Yimba Ma Yimba Gangisina the Ninji. Yeah. And Kon the all right, we're good. Anybody else have any other questions?
We have Alessandra and then Coleman.
Hi, thank you. I don't really have a question. I have a comment, and I don't know if I'm going to express it the way I want you to receive it, so bear with me. When Jeff was reflecting on last week's commentary, and he was going back to say how he had to go to the verse before to understand it, I received that as a clear illustration of dependent arising in everything, even in teaching, and how if we didn't really understand the verse before, we couldn't move forward to fully understand the verse that we were discussing. So I want to thank you for that, because it really helped my absorbing and understanding more comprehensively the connection between what comes first, what comes next, and how it's all interconnected. So thank you.
Alessandra, this Sampere, the Ma, the Natsu Shaloka Chi, the Shaloka Ja, da Nishu Sa Dun, Kona Dason, Nishu Saje, Kona Dason. Then the Shaloka Dunda Yapo Ramason. Gangin Sena Natsu, the Shaloka Lama Lomason. Shaloka Lama Lona, then Yamdu, Dunda Ratu. Then they call the Dunda de Natsu Denden Giche Sheson, the Dunda Rason, Oma Gomba Ras. Shaloka Nicha Go, Shaloka Nicha Lona, the Dunda Ratu. Then they call Saudu, the Gariana Dandelian. Gangin Sena, the Chi Nipa Guna Chi Tambogu. Then Kanga Dandelian, the Becha tree. Shaloka Tambo, Nipa, Somba, Jepa, Shaloka Nipa, Tambo la dene, Shaloka Somba, Nipa la dene. Then con the Dendel Yapucha son Segudu. Yeah, we'll do it. Okay.
Go ahead, Coleman.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. So I was thinking what you were saying, Jeff, and about karma and being able to cultivate virtue. And so I was watching the Discovery Channel, or like a animal show or whatever. And I took notice that a jaguar, for example, or a crocodile used for an example, he's got huge teeth, and this crocodile doesn't have the ability to live off of plants. And so he's killing, and eventually that negative karma will bring him to lower realms. So in that circumstance, he's already preconditioned to suffer because of the actions that he's committing. But the reason that he's in that state in the first place is simply because of causes and conditions, like Rinpoche, karma. I mean, we could be born as just by our negative deeds, be born, as a dog. Then we fight a lot because we fight with dogs. And then you just constantly kind of spiral downwards because of your predisposed disposition, or the suffering of conditioning. That's the fact that we don't really have much self-control. I mean, we can go to the bathroom, we can eat, we kind of choose that. But when I was using the example of a crocodile, he's pretty much screwed. Excuse my language. He's pretty much in a position that's going to lead him down a ugly path. If that makes sense.
I think that's a great example. I think you pulled the meaning out of it. That's a great example. We could be an alligator, a crocodile, and I don't know how long. We could debate it, but we could stop reading right now and then become a crocodile. And then we have free will. It doesn't seem like it, right? What you're saying, you have this ignorance that's forcing you to only look for food, shelter, and so forth. So
like that jaguar, man.
And we're only a breath away from that existence.
Yeah.
Coleman, the boys, the Chuzin, the Sha Mambo Saldu, Khensur Rinpoche, the Depo Le, then come Megewa Mambo Saldu, Khon Rinpoche Yomare, Le Depo, Chuzin, Gutsodo. Alligators are Chuzin, right? Lobsang Tenzin, something like this.
Anyway. Chuzin.
Hey. And Jeff, I was also thinking of the jaguar, or like any of the top predators. Like they're beautiful to look at, but their teeth, I mean, they're killing machines. You know what I mean? Like at that moment, they're beautiful, but extremely dangerous. I just thought that was interesting.
All right. Any more questions? Yeah, I think it's dead on. I think it's more than interesting. I think it's pulling the meaning out.
Thank you.
Just so everybody knows, so I don't forget. Okay, yes, Melinda. But just before I don't forget, we're gathering at the Chenrezig Center on the 11th. So anyone who can come, we're going to have a white Tara initiation in the morning at 10. And then afterwards, we're going to have food. We're having food brought from an Indian restaurant. So please attend. So I don't know that I didn't see an email or anything about it. So I want to make sure people have like an awareness of it. The 10th, 11th, so rather, sorry. It's a Sunday, that's Sunday. All right, Melinda, yes, sorry about that.
Marcel, go. Oh.
I'm sorry. Do you want to go first? Okay, I'll ask my question first. Just from what Coleman was saying about animals that are like killing machines. So they have no, and they don't have the karma to like be kinder or something or not kill. How does a being that is only propelled to kill without like reflection on it or ability to, change their ways, how do they have the ability to create, merit and eventually get out of the animal realm?
Right. We also have to remember that the thing making them act that way and be in the animal realm has a limit also, and as far as it can produce that effect, the karma that's making them that way. So actually acting that birth out is starting to get rid of the karma that made them into that animal in the first place. I know it sounds strange. And then the karma they're creating then makes them into something else later, but not necessarily the next life. The senge, the senche mambo seudu, the ne the kon cheka lama dutsu, the kon simche mambo seson, then kandre junju dro, the neson drogurbe, dan yimba, neson drogurbe. So that being has a lot of virtuous karma as well within their continuum. So at the time of death, whatever arises is what kind of propels them in, throws them into their next kind of potential, their next existence. So even though they're accumulating non-virtue during that one lifetime, they have beginningless lives where they've accumulated virtue and non-virtue. So that one little lifetime, even though it seems so important at that moment, is only going to add to this kind of like collection of imprints that will produce events later on, if you will, or experiences. The kanchika lama, the senge, the ginger draw tudue. Okay, so I was just asking at the time of death if a lion could then go to the higher realms. He just said, I don't know. I maybe didn't ask it the right way. The senge, the chikalama, then shina, the ginger draw tudue. Okay, so yomar, ginger yomar, the me, lama yin, la, draw tudue, then kandre, the legenda, the shikalama, then they consu the shina, then kandre, the ginger draw. Okay, so I was just asking how at the time of death, when a lion dies, then could this experience of a rebirth that's good take place, something in the higher realms of humans, demigods, and gods? And he said, because there are these imprints within their continuum of all these virtuous actions that are already there that aren't connected to that lifetime.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Also, can I add one thing to this conversation?
Sure.
A lot of these, I mean, all animals make good parents, you know, particularly these predators make very good mothers. So I'm not sure that it's fair to assume that they're only accumulating negative karma in these particular lifetimes.
True. The senge, gewa sagdo, sansan. Kon the Kate said the senge, the ama yin, and ama pugu dagdu. And the shamba, the senge, lay kanga, megewa yomane. Yone. Yes, correct. So a lion does not only commit non-virtue because it has love for its child, takes care of it, so it has times of creating virtue as well.
We have Priscilla and Stasha.
But this would be what we debate, right? We're a debate pong. So now I'm like on fire. I'm ready to go, yeah, but they're doing it out of grasping. It's not really love. It's because they have attachment to their kid. Anyway, I don't know if that's true, but that's the way the debate would kind of sound. You know, it would be like, you know, is that really caring? Is that virtue? Is that, but then you would say, well, is the mother's love a human has? Of course it's caring. So then you would establish it as love. Then you would establish it as virtue. So yeah, I love the fact that we're starting to kind of be able to navigate through this stuff as a community.
Priscilla, and then Stasha, and then John.
Good morning, Rinpoche. Good morning, Jeff. In the context of our conversation today, there seems to have been a discussion of determinism versus free will. Within that context, although not knowing that that would be our discussion today, I've been doing quite a bit of academic research into creativity and the creative process, which many people would say is a demonstration of free will, and in fact of, you know, this stuff that didn't exist before, whether it be a painting or a book or a piece of music. We also know that there quite a few creatives who are Buddhists. Laurie Anderson, John Cage being two that I can think of right off the top. So my question is, in this discussion of creativity, and is thinking, I'll talk specifically about a concrete thing of a painting. Does that painting exist conceptually, and then the artist, not necessarily through free will, but through karma, then brings that into a physical reality? Or is creativity an act of free will or some other function of the mind?
So it has to be karma, right? Because don't ask me to paint a picture. So we start there. Like everybody doesn't have that skill. So only certain people have the ability. If it was
that is debatable.
So anyway, I think that you can see that people have affinities to be able to draw certain things, and other people will sit in an art class and it looks like somebody, you know, you can't even decipher what they're really drawing when they're given a specific task to draw something very specifically. So I think that the creation has to have some sort of karma behind it. The Rinpoche, the Rimu, Shaitan Zuken, the Khensur Rinpoche, the Rimu Zu, the Lei Jepo. So it's a result of karma that they're able to paint that. Then the Rimu, the Shaitan, the Khensur, the Sanlo. Then Zugudu. Dit Sanlo, Khensur Rinpoche Yomare. Lei Jepo Yemba. Okay, so the thought, I will paint it like this. So the conceptual thought of this artwork that you will have before you paint it, that conceptual thought came about by some sort of karma, some sort of concordant karma. And again, karma is more difficult to understand than emptiness. But we couldn't be able to do something if we didn't have the cause to be able to do it. And that's what makes us all have different affinities and different skill sets. It would almost be like some people are good at technology, some people are artists, you see the world is divided into all of these categories because people have affinities. It's not because there isn't some sort of karma that's giving them this affinity. Now, sure, of course, there's a whole bunch of people who are trapped in the corporate world that are really rockers, you know what I mean? And like, they really just want to paint. I understand that, but you find that you're drawn to certain things. And I think, and that's the karma. And Rinpoche is saying that the concept of the painting is the karma, the ability to paint it is the karma. So yeah, so if we would say that there, you know, it's karma for us to be able to make the decision to go, you know, do something virtuously or not virtuously, we would have to say that it's the karma that gives us the ability to put brush to canvas. But you know, what that karma is the difficult part to decipher. You know, why is it that for many years, I'm a musician, and all I've ever wanted to do, because most of my musician friends can draw and paint and they do these cool things, is try to draw and paint. Since I've been a child, I've taken art classes. I can't draw a smiley face that doesn't look like there's something wrong with it. So I have a real block when it comes to that. So it's funny that this came up because I'm like, I can't do it. And I don't seem to have that connection to it at all. Whereas other things I can pick up and just do without even practice. So there has to be some concordant cause that makes me, you know, able to do certain things without even really putting any effort into them. Whereas other things I could try my whole life and not be able to do. In
paraphrasing and then this is a discussion that could go on for a very long time. I'm not going to do that, but just paraphrasing I believe it's a John Cage quote, is that you go into the creative space. He is a composer, of course, but he's talking about, artists and people in other disciplines. And, the space disappears and time disappears. And if you're lucky, the self leaves the space also, and the work is created. So I think there's at least from, if there is any merit to what John Cage has said about composing, I think
Pull John Cage up. I want to ask him who then is writing the song.
that is the question.
Right. So either God is or John Cage is, and it's just a subtle level of consciousness he's not able to apprehend or
I will text you the quote.
Bring John Cage. We'll debate. There's no way John Cage is still creating the music, or he wouldn't put his name on the composition.
Well, I'm just I just think I'm not making a judgment one way or the other.
I know. I can't help myself.
Very difficult and fascinating.
Yeah, it is fascinating. I totally understand. I know that place that you can get to that is creative and doesn't seem like it's conceptual in a way. I know that place.
It's called flow.
Yeah.
That is the concept. And
the zone.
It's called flow, and it was it's been studied extensively by a very famous psychologist.
But try to flow without learning to play that instrument he's composing on.
First, the discipline takes place, and then that piece of stuff gets integrated and disappears, and then the creative thing happens. And so the question that I have in researching this is there creativity? Is there, is any of it free will? Does this stuff just happen? Or is all of it, every single piece, including down to the molecule of pigment in cadmium red, is all of that karma? So
great question.
So I am researching this a great deal. I'll send you a couple of names and quotes later on today.
Cool.
Thank you very much. And I hope to have more discussion of this at some time here or in some other venue.
You even see in the, anyway, it's not important. It's good.
So it's all good.
Yeah, no, and I was just trying to get at truth. When you hear something and it's, it wasn't from Tsongkhapa, so I'm ready, When you hear something, you just have to say, okay, well then who's the agent? If there's no self, who's the agent composing? And then if that composition wasn't created by that I, if there's something else creating it, then why would you put your name on the composition? And then who would be the creator of that piece of work?
Yes.
But there is no creator ultimately. You see a lot of music analogies made in the Soncha Korlo, the Wheel of Sharp Weapons, where they use music to explain dependent origination. It's pretty interesting.
If you could send me information, just some quote or reference or name or something, I would really greatly appreciate that.
Sure. Dharma Rashitas. Yeah.
Thank you.
But if that is real, I'm 100% sure that Tool goes there.
Well, yeah. I mean, there is discipline and study and all of that other stuff that comes first, but at some point that gets integrated and is not thought about consciously.
But when we read, we don't think about the alphabet or sound out the letters anymore.
Exactly.
I'm so natural.
And when someone writes a book, who's choosing the words?
Right.
Individual words. So this is what I've been researching lately, and I started researching more than 40 years ago.
Cool.
So, ongoing process. I thank you very much for this.
Thank you so much.
Discussion. Thank you.
Go ahead, Stasha.
Good morning. Thank you for the teaching. Going back to Coleman's question, could you argue that the crocodile and the jaguar and the other apex predators would have definitely some good underlying good karma because they have a better place within the animal kingdom. Sorry, that even though in general they are in the lower realms, they do have better completing karma because they are higher up in the food chain and they don't have many predators of their own self. So could you argue that? Is that a good argument?
That they're
that their lot in life is better, even though they are in the animal realm and they are killing machines, they're not completely doomed because because they're higher up in the food chain. There is a good chunk of good karma there.
Yeah, it's possible because they don't have to do as many things, maybe negative. I don't know. Rinpoche's
that's okay.
the Sangye Dang Zhong Zhanye, the Bu, the Khensur, the Gewa Sa Nupa Chipa. Yeah, so I asked him if a bug, a fly, or a lion would have the equal opportunity to create virtue, and he said similar. I don't know, but obviously, yes, they have the completing karma because they're beautiful and they live in a, you know, it depends on each animal's situation when you look at the completing karma. You know, maybe one lion's completing karma is better than another because they have somewhere where there's always food and the other one doesn't. But definitely every position that we're in is caused by karma. And the lion wasn't only caused by bad karma. Is that what you mean? The lion's existence wasn't only caused by bad karma.
Right. I was just thinking the higher up in the food chain, the more virtuous karma they have because they have less predators.
But it would just be during that specific fruition. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Chuchena.
Let's, if we don't have any more questions, I think Rinpoche is tired. We're going to do the concluding prayers, maybe.
We have John and Charlene, but then.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Go ahead. I may just have to, if you guys don't mind, I may have to do it. So.
That's fine.
Tashidele, how is everybody?
Great. How are you, John?
I'm doing good. I just wanted to make a note that in the past, Board of Directors had agreed that when it comes to sending emails, we won't flood the members with emails. And I've sent Ted several emails about events and whatever, and we send them out on a timely basis where members won't be getting a lot of emails, you know, together. So there will be an email going out very soon about the July 11th Dalai Lama and Rinpoche's birthday party at the center. Okay.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, that'll be going out very soon, but we don't want to bury all these emails onto people. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We had some other stuff to deal with. Thank you, John. I appreciate everything you do. Hey, Charlene.
Hi. Tashi Delek.
Tashi Delek.
I had a question. Well, first, let me say the things that people have been saying are just fascinating about creativity and like, you know, in the Greek, Roman, the Hellenistic view, it would be like the muses. The muses infect your brain and cause the creativity. And I've also heard some interesting stuff about procrastination and creativity, which makes me feel a lot better about myself. But I digress. My question was, I heard a parable about a dog that walks 3 times around a stupa and gains, you know, good karma and a good rebirth because of that. And to me, that says that karma can be, you know, it doesn't need intention, that it could be accidental. But I don't know if I'm misinterpreting or misunderstanding or misremembering that parable.
Yeah, yeah. the Rinpoche, Contriwa de yere, then the Loju yere, the key, the Chorten, Kora Jason, and Gewa Sason, then Gay Sampa the Papa, Key than Papa the Kora Jason, then the key Gewa Sason, and the key, the Gulung Yomare, Yene Gewa Sason. Gewa Sa, Gulung Mena Gewa Sa Tudu. So you don't need the intention to accumulate the virtue. The story, I think, is that maybe it was key dog was chasing a pig around a stupa, right? Circumambulating, isn't that the story?
I believe.
There's probably another one just like it, but there is a story that there's a dog chasing clockwise a pig around a stupa, and then this creates some sort of virtue that allows. I think that the Rinpoche, the Lama, the Loju, the Sanje, the Megengo, Drapa Jegu, then the Shariputra Sumpure, Chiran Gewa Yomare. Then they call then Dronzin, the Dro Chinson, the Nash Ransegore, Sanje Leson. Then the Lama, the Kon, the Koraja, Yomare, the Loju de. The Kon Jewa Lama Le Garisason, the Megengo. So I was just asking Rinpoche, I think that may be connected to the story. Again, don't let, this is the end of the teaching, but I think this may be connected to the story where Shari, the old man, wants to become ordained, and he's over 80 years old, and goes to Shariputra and says, will you ordain me? Shariputra says, you don't have the virtue to be ordained. And then he says, oh, if I can't be ordained, I don't want to live, and goes to kill himself, goes down to a lake or a river to kill himself. Buddha shows up. Buddha says, Shariputra is not omniscient. Shariputra is a Hinayana, doesn't have the omniscience that I have, the understanding. The obstructions to omniscience haven't been removed. When you were in a previous life, you were a dog and chased a pig around the stupa, and you accumulated the virtue that will allow you to become ordained. He ordains him, and he becomes like a Arya or an Arhat, something like that in that lifetime. So yeah, that is a story. And Rinpoche said you don't have to have the intention, especially around powerful objects, such as a stupa. And then is there some inherent power in them? Like I have a problem with that too. So I'm like the doubting Thomas Buddhist, by the way. Like I have a real problem with a lot of it, but I believe so much of it that the rest of it's got to be true. But I have a problem with it a little bit, just logically at times. So don't, this is many years later. So doubt is what makes truth in your mind happen. Even Arya Davis says a little doubt is what shakes the world of samsara. If you even have a doubt about emptiness, like about the nature of reality. So.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's what kind of gnaws at us to get us to have wisdom. That little. Well, what about? All right. Is there any more questions? I think that was it, right? All right. We'll do the concluding prayers. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. Today was kind of a sleepy day for everybody, so I'm glad that we were able to continue with the teaching. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure land. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Lharampa, to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traversed 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In the heavenly realm of Tibet, surrounded by a chain of snow mountains, the source of all happiness and help for beings is Tenzin Gyatso, Chenrezig in person. May his life be secure for hundreds of kalpas. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Rinpoche, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, the spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji Rinpoche, Kuti Shapi Dhamma. Laja, you're to bed. Okay, that's it. Is the board on right now?